Oregon, there are 160,000 undocumented immigrants. There's no good way to track what work these folks do, or what households they're in, or what cities they live in. But what we do know that is that every day they go to work and they work in the shadows, and their families live in the shadows because Congress and the President have failed to take action. President Obama's immigration policies, which appear to be tough on some and not on others, isn't helping. Every day, over 1,000 families are separated, weakening workers' support networks and leaving those who are living in the United States even more vulnerable to illegal employment practices. Now we see the effects of a humanitarian crisis in Central America, compounding our immigration system's problems as refugee children come here seeking relief from a life of terror. Today's announcement by the House and the Senate leaders that they plan to take up the issue before the August recess is welcome news, but neither plan contains enough money, and frankly, we've been told that before, and we can't wait. 160,000 Oregonians work in the shadows in unsafe working conditions, without a guarantee of a regular pay, afraid to use the recourses available to them, allowing any worker is engaged in a race to the bottom. House Speaker Boehner now wants to deny refugees due process. With tens of thousands of children trying to escape violence and oppression at home, we find that unacceptable. We find it inhuman, and frankly, it violates the definition of refugees as our nation has defined it. I want the President to hear this. We support him. We saw the actions he took to help workers. We see what he's doing to raise wages, but it's not enough until we're helping all working people in this nation. It's not enough while 11 million people are working in the shadows and children are overwhelming the systems with no means of support to them. He must take this on. I want to introduce my friend Casey Jama, who himself is a refugee, who works daily with immigrants and refugees in our community, and who are seeking a better life for themselves and their family. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Tom. Again, my name is Casey Jama. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Intercultural Organizing. Let me say this first. I am standing in front of you today because as a refugee, I had a due process. I went to our system, refugee system, and I was able to get my asylum here. And I'm standing in front of you today as a proud United States citizen. So, when, as you know, this week also, we received and our children are coming to our state of Oregon. I cannot think of a better way to say that we are a nation that been built on that we welcome people, particularly when they are fleeing violence. We are also a nation that's been built on people have to have a due process. And we are asking the Congress, we are asking the United States President, President Obama, we are asking to allow those people, refugees who are fleeing violence, to have their due process. But also I am asking all Americans, all Oregonians, to understand where we come from as a nation. And we open our doors, those who are fleeing violence, but also we also ask the Congress and the President, it's time to do comprehensive immigration reform. We are dealing with a system that's a broken system. It's a broken system that's not working for nobody. And we are here with our friends, our colleagues with the labor movement, with our immigrant refugee rights organizations. We are here to demand an action from the Congress and for the President, and it's about time that we have deal with both the refugee crisis that we have as well as the issues of the 12 undocumented immigrant community members. For that, I want to introduce to you David Fidelsky, the Executive Director of the ACLU of Oregon. Thank you very much.
That's Dave Fidanki of the ACLU of Oregon. Thank you, Casey. This issue may have hit the headlines just within the last few months, but it is not a new issue. Children have been fleeing the violence in Central America for years now. This is a copy of a report that was done by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees earlier this year that goes through and tells the stories of hundreds of children who have fled the violence in Central America over the last few years. The numbers are increasing, and the numbers are increasing for a very good reason. The violence, the sex trafficking, and other problems that these children are fleeing has been increasing exponentially. Under our system of laws in the United States, every person within our borders is guaranteed due process of law. That includes people fleeing other countries who come here as refugees seeking asylum. The ACLU just this month has filed a major lawsuit in Seattle seeking for the courts to order that attorneys be appointed to represent every child who is seeking asylum in this country. Currently, children find themselves in these immigration proceedings scared, alone, and too often without attorneys. That's unconscionable. It's not only a violation of our Constitution, it's a violation of international and human rights agreements that the U.S. has signed and is bound by. Every one of these children is guaranteed the right to due process under our Constitution, and that means they should have the right to an attorney to make the best case possible for them based on the facts of their individual situation, so they are not sent back to the very situations where their lives will be in danger. Thank you.
Oregon, friends, family members. My name is Reina Lopez. I'm the Director of Civic Engagement at CALSA, Oregon's Immigrant Rights Organization. And we're here today to support the children and to say that Obama can do something, Congress can do something today. But because of their inaction, here at home, here in Oregon and in other states, we've been having to find short-term solutions to the bigger issues and the inaction that's not happening on the national level. One very good example of what's happening right now is the driver card. A driver card for all Oregonians, no matter what their citizenship status is. So what does all this have to have in common with what's happening on the national level? Really, these short-term solutions are part of a bigger problem. Unaccompanied minors have a lot in common with some of the Oregonians today that are living, working in the shadows here in our state. And the stories are really what connect these people, connect us to them. The stories of our children, the things that our stories have in common. One of those stories, and one great example of those stories, is from a colleague and a fellow colleague of mine who I respect very much, Pedro Sosa, from the Immigrant Friends Service Committee. An indigenous man who's been fighting for indigenous rights here from Guatemala since he was 20 years old. And I would like to call him up to speak.
Thank you very much. My name is Pedro Sosa. I am the Program Director of the American Friends Service Committee. I am a Mayan Che, an indigenous community in Guatemala, and I am here today to speak about our experience as indigenous migrants, those obligated to migrate due to the forced displacement caused by the poverty and the political repression. Our government has to launch it against our people in humane governmental action that impact our communities in the most ruthless way. Transnational corporations strip away our lands. Governments prohibit our language and censor our customs. We are obligated to migrate, not to search for a better life, but to flee from the atrocities conditions in our countries. We are displaced from our lands, obligated to live in exile. Today, we, the original peoples of this land, of this continent, are designated as migrants by some same governments and corporations that have dispossessed us. They have tried to turn us into foreigners in our continent. They want to push us aside. We are most ancestral ones. The inheritors of a millennium history and culture. We the first people of these lands. We are those ones who are told day after day that we are not welcome in the United States. To ensure that we feel this rejection, this offense, governments develop discriminatory and racist laws. It will take a long time to enumerate those grave human rights offenses committed against the indigenous people who are obligated to immigrate. My experience in the 80s, when I was young, like these kids now, we had to flee from the Civil War, where about 200,000 people were killed and disappeared. We had to risk our life in order to find a safe place to live, to save our life. The human crisis in Central America that is fueling migration is a consequence of the U.S. historical support of repressive regimes. As people in El Salvador, in Guatemala, organized for more just and inequitable policies in the 1980s. The U.S. supported brutal oppression and genocide against marginalized communities. As recent as in 2009, the U.S. provided support to the military coup in Honduras. Also other free trade agreements, also other economical agreements like the free trade agreements, NAFTA and CAFTA. That's one of the reasons why our community has to leave the country and look for a better place to live. Some of the current issues in why Central American children are fleeing their countries, because the mine companies such as Redis Gold Company, Gold Corporation, amongst others, are destroying the lands, the water, the families. They have to face health issues like cancer because of the unhealthy environment caused by these companies. And nobody say anything. They are taking illegal occupation by the company lands belonging to Mayan communities. My organization, AFL-CIO, called for the U.S. government to respond to the implicit migration of women and children from Central America with humane policies that respect the dignity of every individual and consider the best interest of the child as a priority. Immigrants should not be detained. Deportation against children should not be expedited. These young children fleeing armed, afraid, and vulnerable. This situation is not on the making. This situation comes from a long-standing causes, including failed U.S. policies in Central America, and these children are innocent victims of those policies. Based on our years of work with AFL-CIO, we put to the U.S. government in Guatemala, in Honduras, and El Salvador to immediately provide humanitarian solutions and support these children's well-being. We believe all people should be treated with dignity and respect. These children are not different. We are not immigrants in our own continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. My name is Ramon Ramirez. I'm president of the Oregon Farm Worker Union, and we stand here in support of the children that are fleeing violence in Central America, who have come to our country looking for a better life. I've seen and witnessed many of these children who are looking for their parents. Many of them are younger than 8, 10 years old. They come here to look for a better life, and these are children. These are children, yet they're not received like they should be. And there's a lot of anti-immigrant bashing going on. We support the president's effort to respect the law, due process for these children. We cannot undercut the values and the laws that we have on the books. Like House Speaker John Boehner is proposing, from what I understand this morning, we have to respect U.S. law. And that means that these children need to be appointed a lawyer and given a fair legal process. That's why we're here to support that. We support the president's budget to make that happen, because when we start undercutting one sector of people, then we undermine the values, the laws, and the customs of which this country was built on. And the fundamental issue here is not about whether we're doing the right legal thing. There's a moral question here, and these are children. You know, and I think that if my children, I have my three children, if they were somehow to be apart from me, I would want to be united with them. And that is the very fundamental principle of this country, family reunification. That was the basis for the coming together of many immigrants around the world that make our country today one of the most powerful countries in the world, the United States of America. It's because we had a shared value of bringing together people fleeing poverty, fleeing economic disaster, fleeing war and hardship. We brought them here, opened our arms. We need to do the same. So we also call upon the President and Congress to pass immigration reform. Now that the Congress has said that they're not gonna, the House has said that they're not gonna move any bill, you know, I think it's a real lack of leadership on behalf of the leadership in Congress not to pass an immigration reform bill, because this will deal with this issue, the issue that we're having right now. And just like an earlier speaker said, you know, we cannot deal with these problems with immigration reform it's not a long-term, short-term solution. It's a long-term solution that we got to deal with. So I want to call upon my colleagues to come up. We're going to text. We're launching a national campaign called Text Reform. And if you text this number, come up with a cell phone, please. And if you text this number, you'll be transferred to a petition that will be sent to the president to take action today. So this is the number 77948, and this is a number that we're promoting nationally among labor members, among faith members,
among community organization, among immigrant rights groups. This is the number to call right now to make a difference for the children on the border. Thank you very much.
Great. So if we could get all of our speakers back up here in case there's any questions. We'll take just a couple more minutes for questions from press before we break.
Ramon, could you say a little bit of what you said earlier, but just in Spanish for our Univision viewers?
Ya, primeramente quiero decir que estamos aquí para apoyar a los niños en la frontera. Yo creo que hay una escasez de liderazgo de parte del Congreso Nacional. El presidente tiene un presupuesto para defender los derechos de estos niños. Queremos que la ley en los Estados Unidos está respetado. Por eso estamos apoyando el presupuesto del presidente, porque necesita dinero para el procedimiento legal. Estamos lanzando una campaña nacional para llamar, texto. ¿Me puedes dar el número, Elena? Y ese es el número donde debes llamar en tu teléfono celular. Es un texto 779-48. Si tú marcas este número en tu teléfono, te van a mandar a un sitio donde vas a firmar por correo electrónico una petición que va al presidente Barack Obama. El número para todos aquellos es 779-48. Gracias.
Great. Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being here.